Hey guys, Tyler with Independence Overland. So today I am reviewing another portable power station. I get offers to review these kinds of batteries on seriously a weekly basis at least. The reason I don't take on all these things and the reason I've given bad or somewhat bad reviews to these in the past is because this is an Overland channel and I'm not reviewing these for the guys that are using it in an off-grid cabin. I'm not reviewing this for the guys that are going to use this for prepper stuff. I'm using this for Overland use and that's what I'm reviewing it for. So you may still get some useful information about this battery from this video, but I am focusing on the Overland use case. ETaker did send me this battery for free, but they're not paying me, nor will they have any say in my review. If you don't believe that, you can go check out some of my other battery reviews. I had some bad things to say about those products. They're still good products, but anyway, I didn't think that they were the most amazing thing ever. And they apparently didn't want to hear that because they have not offered me different products to review since then. And I'm okay with that. I just want to be honest with you guys. And if that means I'm not going to get more free stuff from a company, I don't care. Part of the reason I took on the ETaker is because there are certain features that I in the past have wondered about with other battery systems where I'm like, why aren't they doing this to cater towards those using this with a 12-volt setup? And ETaker has done that, and they've got some pretty cool features on this thing. I'm gonna be totally open right now and say this is my new favorite battery, and there are some really specific reasons on why that is. So I've turned down all sorts of offers for different batteries recently just because I know they're all the same thing. There's nothing amazing about them. As the ETaker system has a dedicated DC-DC charger, and you can charge this thing from your alternator in around 2 to 2.5 hours. That right away got my attention. So we're gonna dive into that and how that whole system works and how it'd be wired up and everything. But that's the kind of detail that I've been waiting for a long time, but it also has more features for the 12-volt crowd that I think set this thing apart. So real quick, let's go over the outer shell on this thing and the external features, and then we'll talk about some of the charging and stuff like that. Okay, so the outside shell of this thing is aluminum, anodized aluminum at that. It has rubber grips for the handles, and then on the bottom it does have some pretty big rubber feet that are really set in there. They don't seem like they're gonna fall out or anything like that. The front and back do have plastic panels for all the ports, and then it's got some fans and stuff on the back as well. There's a big light on the back. We'll get into more on that in a minute. So if you do have a van or a big camper or something like that, you can link up to 10 of these together, which is nuts. It'll actually, you can turn it into a 240-volt system, which is very impressive. But for the sake of this video, we're just gonna talk about one of these things. But if you were gonna do something like that, the feet stack on top here, and then it leaves an area for everything to cool down. And so anyway, it's kind of a cool feature, but I don't see myself using it, but really you could power a house with it. So as far as ports go, it does have a number of ports. This actually has more ports than some of my other options, and I'll show you a comparison here in a minute. Some of the ports are very similar, as you would expect. So this battery does have two regular USB that are 5-volt, 2.4 amp, and then it has two that are quick charge 3.0 that are 60 watt, which is pretty sweet. And then it has two USB-C that are 100 watts. So you could charge your MacBook or whatever off of this directly, your drone. And then on the other side over here, it's got the cigarette lighter port, of course. And then it's got two of the, I want to say this is a P551 port. I'll put it in the text. I always forget what that's called. It's kind of a weird plug. Apparently in other countries they use it quite a bit, but I do have some of the plugs that I've bought before because you can rig those up for your lights or something like that, and then you can plug into that. I don't think a lot of people utilize that port, but on Amazon you can get really cheap adapters, and so you can just wire up some sort of a light or something like that if you want to utilize it. This port right here is for charging. This is solar. If you want to hook up to 1,000 watts of solar, which is crazy, so you could charge this thing in like 2.5 hours off of that. Or it'll do the 12-volt slow charging, which is just your cigarette lighter port. You hook it up to that, and it takes like 8 to 12 hours, somewhere in that range, to charge one of these from zero. It takes way too long. And then also, this is where the DC to DC charger hooks up. We'll go more into the DC-DC thing here shortly. But anyway, it is cool that this thing will accept 1,000 watts. That's a ton. So down here you have your AC plugs, and 3 of them are a 3-prong, and then 3 of them are just a 2-prong, which works because, I mean, I've said it before in some of my other reviews that very few of us are out there using 6 ports on something like this. And on this, you can still do it, but it's like, how many things are you hooking up at camp? Again, I'm doing this from an Overland perspective. So while that stuff's useful, it's so inefficient that I've never really utilized it all that much because it just drains stuff. But those are the ports on the front. So here on the back is your charge port for AC. That'll charge in about 2 to 2.5 hours. This is like it's like a reset button. And then right here is the switch you use for like adapting this to other batteries. And I think that might be where you can also hook up the EV charger, which I'm not sure, but I do know that this has an EV charging attachment. And that's another thing I'll get into here in a minute, because I know that sounds weird, but I could see some of the benefits of that, though it would be few and far between. But for some people, if you have like Rivian or something, I think you can get a whole 3 or 4 miles out of a battery this size, which is nuts. Okay, so now that we got the ports out of the way, let's talk about some of the cool stuff. Okay, so one of the features on this, let me turn this bad boy on, is it has this rear light. Now, I know a lot of them come with lights, and I've seen a lot of these batteries that actually have a light. It's kind of like a spotlight, which is always really weird, because I'm like, why would you hold this thing like a flashlight? This one has a light where when you turn it on, it comes on really slow, so it doesn't blind you as soon as it does come on. And let me see if I can remember. Yeah, so you can turn it to a warmer light, and you can kind of choose what you want. I don't think it's dimmable. Maybe it is. But either way, it is an actual handy light, and whenever you have this in a dark space, it is actually pretty impressive how much of a flood it has. Like, I could actually see this light being used to, if you're getting in the truck, or if you have this set up in your tent or your little camper or something like that. It's actually a pretty decent light. It's very soft, and it is drawing a whole 2 watts, so it's not going to take up very much power. So even though it's just a light, and I know a lot of other ones have a light, the fact that it's like a soft starting light so it doesn't blind you, I do appreciate that feature. Okay, so this is a 2008 watt-hour battery, which is only 40 watt-hours less than this Blue Eddy battery is. So the ETaker is using a semi-solid state battery. I'm not that up to speed on battery chemistries and the science behind them, but I do know from what I read that the semi-solid state stuff is like 30% more dense. So anyway, here's an example of how much smaller that battery is, which is pretty cool, because this is huge and it's very heavy. So while this battery is smaller, it's basically the same amount of power, and it's far lighter. This thing right here, this has got to weigh like 40 or 50 pounds. As you can see, this is a much smaller battery, especially for something like an SUV. This is going to be a better fit, and I really do like that it has the aluminum shell. So of course, as most of these units run, this is a pure sine inverter, but this is a gallium nitride inverter. So that type of an inverter apparently produces 50% less heat. So the form factor could just be shrunk down because they don't need as much space for the inverter to breathe. So I think that all factors into how they made this thing a pretty compact little block. So the ETaker is not much bigger than this little Blue Eddy that's 768 watt-hours. It has more ports on it. Yes, it's more expensive, but the other side is that this can charge fast. So one of the features of this battery is something that I complained about in the past on some of the other manufacturers' batteries. Not really complained, but it was just kind of a suggestion, was why do we have jump start batteries out there that are this big, lithium battery, but we can't use one of these to jump our vehicle? So ETaker has started working on that. You can't 100% jump start your vehicle off of it, but there is a like alligator clamps you can get for it, and you can hook it to your car. So if your truck, and if your truck is not starting, you can hook this up, and it has a special mode in it to where it will basically charge your battery over the course of between 5 and 30 minutes, depending on how long you need. But that's huge to me, because when you already have something like this and you can charge it off of solar, if you're out in the middle of nowhere and your vehicle won't start, that's a pretty big problem. So your starting battery is just for starting your vehicle, and then everything else is running off the alternator. So once you get your vehicle started, you should be good to go. You need to get your battery replaced still, but being able to have something like this that can actually charge your vehicle is pretty awesome. So it's a very small but very big feature for those of us that are traveling with this thing in our 4-wheel drive. So anyway, props to ETaker on that. So this thing does have a low temperature mode. This will work down to -22 degrees. So if you were to start this up according to the manual, in temperatures like that, you need to turn it on, and there's, I think, a heating element inside of it, because it says to wait about 30 minutes before utilizing it. So if it's a cold start and it's that cold, then the system will warm itself up once you turn it on, and you should wait 30 minutes. But if you just left it on in the truck all night, then the heating element should turn on and it won't be a problem. Okay, so I did intentionally drain this battery a little bit before this test by plugging in a space heater. And as you can see here, it's down to 27%. And I've got it turned up all the way. Now, I'm gonna get into the app control here shortly because it doesn't exist yet. But something to know is that all of these functions can be controlled from the unit, from the buttons. But the downside is that the manual doesn't tell you how to do this. So I just kind of had to figure it out. It's actually pretty simple. So a double tap on the power button here, and it goes into, see if it does it. Or was it a triple tap? Yeah. So it dips back down. We're at 516 watts input. So it'll take about 2.5 hours to charge this thing, 2.6. And then if I double up like that, then it will kick into 1.18 kilowatts. There we go. So now this thing will charge up in about an hour from 25%, which is pretty impressive. But again, that's AC charging, but that's similar numbers to what you can do with solar. Now with solar on this, you can do up to 1,000 watts. Of course, that's only gonna apply to van lifers, or if you got a big camper or something like that, where you've got all that solar, or if you've just got a ton, and I mean a ton of portable solar panels, but it's cool that it has that. So the other side of this is, like I said, the power port for 12 volt charging. It takes so long. It's gonna take you like 8 hours to charge this thing. It's ridiculous. All of these have the option of 12 volt charging from your cigarette lighter port or whatever port, but it is painfully slow. What I also want to go over, that this does have an adapter to where you can use this with an EV charging station. And I know a lot of people might be like, why in the hell would you need that? You know, whenever I go on some of these trips, if I were needing this battery for certain things, I could actually see myself using that function if I didn't have another way to charge it. So if you decided not to buy the 12 volt fast charger for some reason, then having that as an option is pretty sweet. Because like for instance, whenever we go to the Overland Expos, I use my portable AC, the Zero Breeze AC, and I've used that with the Zero Breeze battery before, and it works great. But that battery charges incredibly slow as well. It has to be perfect solar. I can't quick charge it. As something like this, I could quick charge it and I could have it charge in an hour and a half using that adapter. So if you're traveling across the country or something, EV chargers are in a lot of different convenient places now, gas stations and stuff like that. So if for some reason you're traveling and you weren't able to keep up with the charge in another way, then having access to those EV ports is actually kind of a nice feature. I can see it being very specialized, but your only other option really for buying power from somebody would be to go to a campsite, pay for a campsite, stay overnight, do all that stuff. So anyway, it's just kind of a small feature. I'm sure that applies to some people more specifically than others. I know with power stations like this, something like a Rivian you can get like a whole 3 miles out of or something like that. It's crazy how much power those things use. So I guess if you're gonna use it for something like that, then you could charge your vehicle and then charge this, but whatever. Anyway, I just wanted to cover it. Okay, so this is the other part of this system that I think is just incredibly cool, and this is its little DC to DC charger, and it comes of course with the cables necessary to use it. So this is a very simple device to hook up. It basically has it's fused. It does come with a fuse system, and it already comes with little terminals on it. And so you plug this into the back here just like that, and then you plug this front side in for the output, and then you plug it into the front. For something like this where you're gonna have a dedicated charger, I do wish this charge port was on the back rather than the front, because when you're going with a system like this, it's probably more likely that it's like, oh, we're taking this for the weekend, you plug it into the back and you slide it into where it's gonna go, and then you go about your business. Versus having it on the front just kind of leaves it open to where it's a little less convenient. I do think in the future that the charge ports, and I prefer charge ports on the back. This is outputs, this is inputs. That's just me. But anyway, so it does come with a nice heavy cable for that. And then you simply hook this up to your 12 volt battery, your starting battery on your vehicle, and it starts charging. So this thing does have multiple different modes. So 500 watts is the most that this will put out to this battery, which is pretty good because that means it'll charge from the 25%, 26% that we just saw. It'll charge it in about 2.5 hours at the full 500 watts, which 500 watts, I have to say, is a ton. And for some of you out there, if you just are putting this in your Subaru or something like that, because I know you guys are out there, your alternator in a vehicle like that may not be up to the task. And I'll tell you right now, with my Red Arc system combined with this, my alternator is not up to the task. It's gonna be demanding way too much of that thing, and you can burn an alternator up. So you need to be mindful of that. But the nice side is that this has a 500, a 400, and a 300 watt selector right here. So you can just choose that and you're good to go. The other thing about this is it has a convenient on-off switch. So for my situation, if I needed to charge this faster, for instance, if I'm using it with the AC like I was mentioning before, and I need to charge this up in like an hour so I can get back to the expo and make sure that the air conditioner battery is charged up, then I could go through and just flip the breaker for my Red Arc system, turn this on, and then have 500 watts going straight to this just to charge it that much faster, if that makes sense. So it's actually a pretty cool feature. I do like seeing that, that you can turn it down. So I've got a wedding in Montana this weekend, for instance, and in my wife's RAV4, I'm gonna be driving that thing with a little tiny fridge for the long drive. And it's, you know, better fuel economy out of that thing, and we're not camping. So I'm going to use this in combination with this for the little refrigerator that I'm gonna take. And it's gonna be super easy to hook up, and I don't feel like it's as much of a commitment as something like a dedicated DC-DC system is. So while this is rated for 500 watts from the alternator, this is rated for 1,000 watts total. And the way you get that is from solar. So if you have 500 watts of solar on your roof, or maybe a couple different panels, you can utilize all that as well. Of course, you'd need adapters to hook up multiple solar panels and all that stuff. But this in total will do 1,000 watts, which is basically, it's getting close to the maximum input on this device, which is pretty impressive. I love seeing that stuff. Now, from what I've read about how this works, is unlike a red arc system, the red arc systems basically see a certain voltage input, and it tells the vehicle, or tells the charger, that the vehicle's running and it can start taking a charge, as this apparently picks up vibrations. I'm not sure that you could soft mount it or something like that. It might need to be in a position where it has a little bit of shake to it. What I wanted to do originally was to take this and hook it up to my fuse panel, so I don't have two DC-DC chargers off of my alternator, because it's honestly, it's too much, and my system will not like it and it'll fry my alternator. So what I wanted to do was to take this and put the battery terminals to my fuse panel. I wanted to have this pulling off of my dedicated battery and charging this, and then whenever it's done, I could just flip this off and this is good to go. And then whenever I'm driving, I'm only taking from one of my DC-DC chargers and charging the whole system up. But it didn't work. But I also had this on the seat, so I'm gonna do some more testing, and I will let you guys know towards the end of this video what I found out. But as far as this battery system goes right now, I do have some final thoughts, because I have been using it for a couple weeks now, and I'm very impressed with this thing. So with this battery, one of the downsides it has right now is it does not have an app. This thing has Wi-Fi and it has Bluetooth, but I have no idea what features are gonna come with that. Of course, it's gonna have like an app, but the app is still being developed. They promised me it's coming, but apparently due to how apps get approved and stuff like that, it's taking long and it's gotta go through a whole process. But they did tell me that it is coming. So I'm curious how the Wi-Fi will work as well, because I know with other systems, Wi-Fi basically means that you can access the battery from anywhere. So if this were at home for some reason, and you needed to turn something on with the AC or the DC, you could actually do that through Wi-Fi. I assume that's how it's gonna work, but I have no idea. But either way, having the app is gonna make a big difference. But for now, it doesn't have that, so I can't really comment on that. And it's kind of a bummer that it doesn't have the app once it's launched, because I think these have been out for a little while. But everything you can do with the app, you can do with the buttons. But the downside is that there's no explanation of how the buttons work in the manual that I can find anywhere. There's no like double tap to make it charge faster and stuff like that. I just had to figure it out. So that's a downside, but it's not complicated, so no big deal there. The one thing I would personally like to see on something like this in the future is some sort of an expansion port for those of us who use these in a like an overland vehicle or a van life sort of a thing. Something like a 30 amp port that's designed to be like this. So for something like that, you would have one plug that you could plug in, and then you could have that running to a fuse panel. So then if you want to have the dedicated things like your awning lights, tent lights, and just whatever kind of lighting or accessories that you have, and you want those to have power all the time when using something like this, I think that a port like that would make a big difference and it would be very useful. So while this isn't going to replace my DC-DC system with a dedicated battery and a red arc system, what it is going to do is expand on that, because I can get an inverter out of this. I can have a battery that I can just deplete if I need it for AC or if I need it for a heater or something like that. I can deplete it and not care, because I've got a backup battery that's keeping my food cold and stuff like that. So with this system, rather than having like two 100 amp hour batteries in the vehicle, I'll have a big battery, and then I'll have this battery as sort of I can just not care about it, because once it reaches zero, everything else doesn't shut off, if you understand what I'm saying. But either way, I'm sure that this is going to work for a lot of people. I know a lot of you absolutely love the battery systems and how simple they are. Okay, so pricing on this thing. The DC-DC charger is $199 on Amazon. The battery itself is $1648 with a coupon code of $549 listed. So you can get this thing for about $1,100. So for the combo is $21.99 and it has an $800 off coupon code listed on Amazon right now. I don't know how long that'll last, I have no clue. So that's pretty competitive pricing with the other battery packs that I've seen before. And the main advantage here is just being able to charge it. Because honestly, you could get away with less of a battery pack and having a fast charger kind of makes up for it. So I'm gonna be utilizing this battery a bunch this summer. I'm very excited to have this thing. This is honestly like the battery I've been waiting for because this is a perfect add-on for my electrical system. I'm very impressed with this thing. I did get a chance to use this battery for 3 days in Montana on one trip, 4 days in Wyoming for induction cooking on another trip, and 2 days for portable AC use at the Overland Expo Pacific Northwest. And here are my final thoughts. I've been using this battery for the better part of a month now, and it has been fantastic. We just used it last weekend at the Overland Expo in the Pacific Northwest. We had Blue, our dog, with us, and she's old. She doesn't come out of the truck that much because she just can't walk around that much. So we keep an AC on her. We have a way to monitor that. I did other videos on that. But point being was that we use this battery to power the Zero Breeze air conditioner. We had solar running into this, and I was able to run the AC on the hottest day of that event all day long from, it was about 11 a.m. until about 7 p.m. when we felt we were comfortable turning it off. And with solar, this stayed at 90% because the AC draws about 188 watts. I had more solar than that going into this. And it was nice because obviously whenever the solar wasn't doing its job, this was doing it and making up for it. One of the biggest features about this battery is the 12 volt DC to DC charger. So being able to hook that up and charge this thing as we drive was fantastic, and I did learn some more about how that system worked. I had this hooked into my Red Arc system, my dedicated battery system on the FJ. The way the DC-DC system works on this thing is it senses vibrations. So when you have it hooked up to the battery and you have the system turned on, the charger turned on, and you drive, it will sense that you're driving from road vibrations and it'll start charging. The downside to that is that I had issues a couple times. Sometimes it'd work and sometimes it wouldn't, and I was kind of confused by that. But sometimes when I was sitting still, I couldn't get it to turn on to charge it. And if it's sensing vibrations and all you're doing is sitting still and you have the truck running, if it's not vibrating enough, then it may not work, or at least in my experience. Sometimes after driving, it would stay charging for a while, but a lot of the times it would just shut off, and I assume it only charges for so long after it stops sensing that vibration. So I did find that with the DC-DC charger, this plug right here, like this one's tight. This is just a 12 volt charger. I found the one for the DC-DC system is almost too smooth on the plastic, so it fell out a couple times, and it didn't end up affecting me that much because I just caught it and I plugged it in. But because of that, I did show up to camps a few times where I was like, oh, I thought this was charging for the last couple hours. And because it doesn't currently have the Wi-Fi or Bluetooth features working, which they are supposed to be working sometime this summer, because of that, I didn't see that it wasn't charging while I was driving. I would say all in all, I have around 40 hours of drive time using this, and I was finding a few times that the plug for the DC-DC system was coming undone. On the Wyoming trip with my buddies, I was doing induction cooking, so I was relying on this for that, and it does take a tremendous amount of power, so I needed to recharge it every day. And then on the Pacific Northwest trip, I was relying on it for the AC for the pup, and it worked for that, but I did have to keep a close eye on it and keep things going and make sure that everything was plugged in. So if you're gonna rely on this 100%, which I'm going to for the next 6 months or so, I think, you do need to keep a pretty close eye on it and just make sure that everything is working correctly. So those minor gripes aside, I have to say that this is my favorite battery that I've used to date. This thing is just badass. So I'm looking forward to utilizing this battery more for, this will be used for refrigerator use and general camping use. It'll kind of give me a taste of the lifestyle that a lot of people are doing, where they're using a system just like this to do everything in their camping setup. So that's the ETaker M2000. I will be utilizing this thing for the rest of the year at least. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time.
As always, thank you so much for watching, and click one of the videos in the corner to check out more of our adventure, off-road, and overland related content.